Hello and welcome back to another episode of Internet Friends. Everybody's so excited to be here on a Sunday. Everybody's excited for the big game that we're not going to watch.
No.
Super Battle, yes.
I'm going to look up the commercials later tonight, and that'll be it.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be all over your feed in no time at all. So anyways, I'm here with that Seth.
Hello.
And the Raccoonaloon herself, Bree. All right, so starting off, what have you guys been up to the last couple of weeks since we last talked?
Gaming, just playing video games. We got a foot of snow last week, and I've been still dealing with that. So I've been playing RoboCop Rogue City.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
What about you, Brie? What have you been up to?
I was actually in Canada until Monday. So I was there for 4 days to visit my partner and celebrate his birthday. He's 36 now, so practically dead. I'm this much closer to being in his will. So, we're working. It's a long game, but we're working every angle.
He's middle-aged at best.
Close to death,
She's planning something. She's
right.
Exactly. Trust the process here. So
she has to do it before the sports car is bought.
Yes.
Unless she wants to get that sports car.
Correct. I also need the citizenship. So it's a multi-tiered plan. So we get the citizenship, we get the health care, and then mysterious death. I don't know. Who's to say?
It's just, which would be very weird considering the health care.
Would be so weird, but he's getting up there in age. Not suspicious, right, friends?
Hey, as long as you can work with those wait times that I hear about up in Canada, you should be all right.
Yeah, I mean, we have to wait here still, and it still sucks. So I feel like
it's just would you rather wait 3 to 4 weeks for your health care, or would you rather just not get it?
Oh, it's painful.
Or just go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt for it. We're not a political show, guys, obviously.
Cries an American, it's fine.
All right, cool. Yeah, well, I've just mostly had a pretty busy work week, The first show went pretty okay, started posting out some of the clips on all of the infinite streaming scroll sites and actually saw a little bit of traction in some places.
Nice.
I believe it was our safe search bit that actually got 600 views on YouTube somehow.
Yeah, I saw that doing really well on Shorts.
Yeah, it did really well on Shorts out of nowhere. I have no idea how that happened. And saw a little bit of traction. TikTok is TikTok. Reels didn't do anything, but I don't really expect anything out of Instagram Reels. But, you got to play that algorithm game. But yeah, other than work stuff, I haven't really been up to that much. Had a shoot lined up for yesterday that, of course, flaked out, as always.
Fun.
Oh.
You try to get back into a hobby, and then you realize why you left it.
That's what you get.
Yeah. Exactly. Pretty much. So, anyways, starting off this episode, I figured we would go straight into last week's homework assignment, which was Hazbin Hotel, which was recommended by Bree. So, Bree, why don't you tell us kind of what we should have studied?
Yeah, I mentioned this, I think, a little bit last time, but this show has always interested me because they put the pilot out, I believe, in 2019, and it did very, very well, and it got picked up by A24, I think maybe 2 years after, and this is by the same people who produce Hell of a Boss, which has also been doing very well, but has not been picked up by any big studio, so that's been produced fairly weekly, not weekly, I think once a month on YouTube. So the fan base has been kind of impatient because that show was being produced regularly, whereas now that this one, Hazbin Hotel, was picked up by A24, you have to deal with, bigger production and a longer timeline. So, in fact, I believe Hazbin Hotel was slated to be released last year, and it just ended up not happening for a variety of reasons. So finally, it has come out this year. And I think generally it's been pretty favorable outside of a couple things I want to talk about later, but
TikTok loves it.
Yes, absolutely they do. I am interested to see how far the two of you got, because I do have predictions for how far either of you got. So let's start there.
Well,
Ooh, I'm interested.
Well, I watched the whole thing.
Oh,
So I watched it with Emily because Emily can watch things without me, and it's not a big deal. But if I try watching something new, like she has to watch it with me. That's just kind of how it works.
Fair.
So no, we've gone through the whole thing. I also watched some Hell of a Boss. I was familiar with the show, but I've never watched it previously, so I understand they kind of have semi-shared universes.
Yes.
So I watched it to kind of get the context. You know, watching Hell of a Boss gives you the idea of kind of like the tone, especially that you kind of get from like where their creators' mindsets are for like what the show is supposed to be, which we'll get into a little bit more later. But yeah, so like we watched the whole thing. We watched everything that was on Prime at the time, including like the pilot and everything else. And then as the rest of the episodes came out, we kept up with it. So all caught up. Haven't watched all of Hell of a Boss. I think I'm almost done with the first season.
Okay.
So that's about as far as I got.
I've only seen clips of Hell of a Boss, but I binged all of it yesterday. All of Hazbin Hotel yesterday.
Right until the last minute. Way to ADHD itself.
Yeah, but I specifically wanted it fresh, so I waited as long as I could so that it would all be in here. And I tried watching it Friday and then fell asleep.
Happens.
Excellent. I was not expecting either of you to finish it, to be honest. So
Really?
I was actually expecting Aaron to drop out a couple episodes in, and I was expecting Seth for you to like get most of the way through. So I'm actually really proud of both of you. That's excellent.
Why is that, Brie? Why did you think we would drop?
Honestly, because I get why this show is not for certain people. One, it is very definitively a musical, which is one of the biggest negative things I've heard about this show, which again blows my mind because I think in the pilot it's very fucking clearly a musical.
Yeah.
But
and the songs are great.
They're super good, which is why part of the reason the production took so long. And again, it's a pretty much all Broadway cast. The person who plays Adam and I think one other character, he is the original Beetlejuice in the Broadway production. And you could tell.
There's so many voices that you recognize.
It.
Some of them are very obvious, like Stephanie Beatrice and Keith David. Like you hear those voices, they're distinctly them. But there's definitely like voices that you've heard from other musical content that you've heard. Yeah. But no, for the most part, I was hooked at the pilot. I was just like, oh yeah, no, I'm in. This is.
Yeah, I really like the pilot.
Yeah, it was definitely on my lane. It has that early 2000s Cartoon Network, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy sort of vibe to it. I know that Viv, the creator, has connection to the Cartoon Network animation world. She's worked on other projects on that based on what I've seen. But no, I was all for it. And I don't mind musicals. Emily makes me watch the musicals all the time. So but and the thing that the show I think did really well is that, it does a good job of creating characters that you can relate to more than anything else. And we're all degenerates here. So the fact that, all the characters are shitty people, quote unquote, or anything else, is just that wasn't a turnoff for me. So there's characters that you can root for and attach yourself to very easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought the animation all around was just beautiful. The character designs were great. The whole world, it was just wonderful to look at outside of everything else.
And the pilot obviously is a little bit rougher around the edges than the rest of the show, but it still had kind of that again mid 2000s charm, whereas I feel what A24 ended up working mostly on, or the Beatbox Studios, I believe, was the production house. You could tell that it was more polished and had more of the more modernized Warner Brothers style of animation kind of put to it. But for the most part, I had very little issues with the show.
And I'm very surprised. And again, what I wanted to talk about with this is fan bases, because the fan base for this show is a little rough, especially if you have been on TikTok. It's just they are rabid. They are rabid fucking fans, which is tough to even be tell people about it, because I don't know, I feel people roll their eyes. They're oh, you're one of those. It's no, I just think the show's really cool. I think the animation's pretty. I love the character design. It's not like that. But and I'm so sorry. But we just
it's very obvious early, like especially when I watched the pilot, like didn't know anything about Hell of a Boss or any of the previous things, but like it's the first time you watch it, it's just like, okay, I know exactly who this show is targeted at and why that fan base might be of certain kinds of personalities. Like there's obvious furry influence
Yes.
in the show, like very obvious, and then there's also just like some other kinds of elements, and it's a bit on the edgy side.
Yes.
It's for the most part, like it is unapologetically an adult cartoon, and so therefore you have to go into it with a certain level of expectation. And so, but like, it's one of those shows where it's just like, this is a really good show. I can also see why I would probably hate a lot of the people who would be big fans of this show.
Yes. Well, and I think also what I have noticed, just like in like the discourse, like reading comments and things like that, there's also definitely like a skew of this fan base that is very young. And I think this is probably some people's first exposure to an adult cartoon. So, and
we're all desensitized as hell. So we're just like, yeah, whatever.
Like, these are Happy Tree Friends, like when we were growing up, and like things like that, we're just like our salad fingers, things like that. Like we're just like, oh, this is kind of a little darker. Maybe I shouldn't be watching this. And I definitely get that vibe from like reading comments and reading that, like just interacting with the content. I was like, oh, sometimes I feel too old for this kind of thing, but it's just like, there's too much good content there. For me personally, I'm just like, yeah, the fan base, a little cringy, but I'm just going to interact with a show that I think is really cool. It was honestly well worth the wait, in my opinion. So
it's funny that it is firmly an adult show, but there were definite moments where I was watching it going, is this a Christian production? It's got a lot of like redemption themes, and
I was definitely watching this. It's just kind of like, okay, like, so Seth is the one with the most religious trauma out of the group that I at least remember talking about. I don't know. I grew up in a very secular household, so like a lot of that stuff gets lost on me. But I do kind of feel like if you watch Hell of a Boss and if you watch like pilot, like, and then go into like the actual A24 and Beatbox production, you can kind of tell that they sanded the edges down a little bit, because Hell of a Boss is like way on like the Happy Tree Friends and of things when it comes to like the gratuitous violence and stuff like that. Like obviously, Hazbin Hotel definitely has like moments where you're just like, wow, they actually took the time to animate that.
Person ripped their own arm off.
Yeah. Well, or like specifically episode 4, which is like the one that's like really centered around Angel. Like that one, like I was just like, oh, they're actually going to show that kind of stuff. Okay.
I give a trigger warning for that episode, because granted, I think episode 4 is the best episode. It is a very rough episode. So
it is.
But it's real well acted. It's beautiful.
Yeah, going back to like the TikTok fan base kind of thing of it, like that's the one that I've seen like the most like commentary about. And like, of course, like when you start talking about toxic relationships and sexual assault and all that other kinds of stuff, and again, mature themes, mature adult themes, like, some people have certain reactions to that, and my reaction is just like, yeah, but like these are things that people actually deal with, and we're trying to tell a story about people who chose paths like Angel did, of just like, hey, I'm going to sell my body, I'm going to do drugs to get numb and all this kind of stuff, because basically this is what life threw at me. But regardless, like that's kind of what it was, and that's kind of when talking about the fan base, I really much kind of think it's like you said, Brie, there are some younger people who are hopping into this, and this is their like first exposure to like adult content. And then obviously you also have rabid fans who like sometimes maybe don't understand the message that is there.
Yes.
Rick and Morty was horrible about this, because you had a show that was relatively really good and had like a lot of interesting kind of commentary and themes, but it got wrapped up in the Szechuan sauce pickle Rick jokes that people
insert that clip of the person screaming at McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like, it's okay to be a fan of something, but it's not okay to be an asshole about it.
Yeah, 100%. I was kind of wondering if you, because I feel like there's a lot of fan bases that kind of skew on that. Like I know Steven Universe is a big one too, where people don't even want to interact with the content because the fan base is so what it is. Do you guys think generally that, like, I don't know, is there a fan base that you think is too cringy where you're like, okay, I'm going to avoid this show like the plague, I don't care how good it is?
I mean, as recovering Star Wars fan.
It's fair.
That's a pretty obvious one. But I feel that way about so many different fandoms. I think it's also fandom in general. And we talked about this last time. But, you know, I was thinking a little bit about this and like comment sections and social media and just like online communities, I feel like a lot of ways have kind of ruined media in a lot of ways. Like everything gets a reaction, everybody gets a commentary out of it, and it's like you just want to see, it's like, oh hey, I really like that, I want to see what other people think about it, and then you just find these troves of just completely out there crazy stuff. You see that in comedy, you see that in you know, online animation, nerd culture stuff all over the place, where it's just like people giving their knee-jerk reactions and not necessarily contributing anything really of value to it, but mostly just like, you know, there's just this weird kind of thing where it's just like, maybe it's okay for like some people to just not talk.
Yeah, people feel like they have to make a comment because, again, going back to episode 4, I saw a weird amount of videos. I actually just showed up on my feed today and like over the weekend about how that episode was fetishizing violence. And I'm just like, did we watch the same thing? Because I think this is a pretty solid commentary on like abuse of sex workers and also maybe having to do something you didn't want to do for a different reason. You know what I mean? Like they get more into his lore later, but like there's a reason he sold his soul to that person. It was to protect someone else. So there's a purpose to that.
Yeah.
Like that was the kind of whole theme that I had. It's just like, hey, you know, some quote unquote sinners aren't necessarily sinners because they're bad people.
Yes.
They're sinners because they were put in bad situations.
Yeah. I'm shocked that people even got that kind of, but again, I think it's kind of to your point. I'm like, people feel like they have to say something and they're like, oh, well, let me make a big 2-hour commentary about how actually this is the worst. It's just like, you can also just not like a thing and just like move on with your day. Also totally an option.
And you can also take time to not have that knee-jerk reaction and actually think about a thing and dissect it beyond your initial knee-jerk.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah. And no, I was just kind of like also thinking about it as well. Like another thing I've been kind of noticing from like, you know, my algorithm having this stuff start getting served into my stuff. There, a lot of it is, you know, fan theory and like, here's what we think is going to happen and all this kind of stuff and how it ties in with this kind of thing, which is like all well and good to a certain extent, but that also kind of creates expectations for a piece of media that when, and I talked about this with the Star Wars thing, where it's just like when you build up this idea of what it's supposed to be in your head and then the creators of it don't deliver it or they don't do the thing that you thought they were going to do, it causes that uproar and like that panic. It's just like, no, let these people tell the stories that they want to tell.
Yeah, or the showrunners do the thing that the fans wanted and it turns out that thing was terrible.
Yeah, and this seems like a show that's very rife with that, and I think I saw a couple of things where it's just like, yeah, no, the showrunner Viv is like very, very swayed by fan opinion and fan input, and you know, creating that kind of like fan service content, and like, you know, I don't know how much you guys were ever into anime, but anime is like swathed with this kind of thing where like the creators will just do a thing because the fans want it, and it's just like, yeah, that's not good. Supernatural's a great example.
Well, I know
that's
Shonen
a fan
Jump.
base I wouldn't deal with.
Yes, actually, thank you. I was having a hard time thinking of my fan base. I don't want to deal with. Supernatural is absolutely one. But that's a Shonen Jump thing. They'll like, the editors will hear from the fan base and go to their writers and be like, okay, you're writing this now.
Yep. It's like, oh, well, we have to do a beach episode. But no, yeah, so like I said, I have very little problems with the show itself. I can't really think of anything that I would say overtly negative about the show. Spoiler kind of thing, I'll have a spoiler warning put up, but the only thing I thought was like, yeah, it's kind of weird that they decided to do a Deus Ex Machina using Lucifer right at the end.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of him coming in and saving the day.
Like, I get how it works, but I was just like, wow, really? You're going to Deus Ex Machina this using Lucifer? Interesting.
Yeah, I liked it personally, but I think it was honestly, I feel like that moment in general, because I literally just rewatched this episode like maybe an hour ago. A huge focus in that like scene in general is that they wanted to show Alistair getting hurt, which I think was very, very poignant because it's just like I feel like he seems so unstoppable. So and Charlie's not strong enough, Maggie's not strong enough, so they needed somebody to be like, I don't know, to pull them out of that. I don't think they would have run otherwise. So that seemed to be my focus.
That's also
fair.
the point of like the Deus Ex Machina trope. It's literally just like, okay, when you give your characters insurmountable odds, but you can't have them lose, how do you solve that?
Yeah.
Alistair was by far my favorite character, by the way.
He's always been my favorite. I think his whole aesthetic is so cool. And the voice actor is phenomenal. Honestly, he sounds so much like the person who was in the pilot. I thought they did a really good job. They're not the same. No, actually, I don't believe any of the voice actors are the same, which is another thing this show got a lot of shit for. And I was like, honestly, outside of Husker, they did like, I think they're identical. Honestly, they did such a good job matching those voices.
you almost forget like watching like the actual show that like they did switch out the cast kind of thing until you go back and watch the pilot and you realize like it's just like I forgot that Husk wasn't Keith David in the pilot, at the point, just because it fits so well. So you have to give them credit for that. I do, going back to kind of things, just like I said, like going back to what I think like the studio with A24 and Beatbox probably did. They inserted some of those like narrative tropes that I feel like wouldn't be in there otherwise if this was like created in the way that like Hell of a Boss is. Not saying Hell of a Boss is like an amazing piece of media, but like you could tell like Hell of a Boss, being that it's more independent, they make the episodes they want to make, and they don't necessarily follow like traditional tropes and kind of things. It's like this feels like very much like, yeah, there's a studio and like paint by numbers writing kind of like going with the plot a lot in it.
See that, and I will say, what's a very interesting challenge about this show is just like they've had many, many years for fans to speculate all this time. So I think, and they released a lot of like in between lore. They had released like web comics and like a bunch of like and merch things in between, and small little nods at Hell of a Boss to this show that I'm sure it was very challenging for them to get people up to speed who have never seen the show before, but also keep this entertaining enough for the people who have been waiting, and know some of this backstory to like kind of catch everything up. Because I was a little concerned about the pacing in that sense, but I think some of those like more like generic story beats, I think that helped kind of piece those things together, because they're only 20-minute episodes. They have a lot of story to cover, especially for people who have been with this since 2019 and eagerly awaiting the story. It makes sense to me. I was concerned about pacing in general, just because I was like, oh wow, they're really going with 20-minute episodes. Like that is not a lot of time to get a lot of story across, but they did it pretty well in 8 episodes, I thought. I think it's 8. Yeah, 8 total.
Yeah, it was 8 when I watched it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense, and that's also a hard balance they have to strike, because like, yeah, the reason that it got picked up is because there was such a huge fan base like underneath it, to where it's just like it will easily support itself on its own merits, but you still have to keep in mind of like bringing new people in who aren't necessarily the rabid fans of it.
Awesome. I'm glad you guys liked it so much.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Excellent. That's all I had on it. So I'm glad you liked it. I think it's cool.
Emily loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah, Emily loved watching it. Like Emily's. So the thing with me and Emily is like it always kind of comes down to the characters, right? Like it's like kind of what I said at the beginning. And so like me and Emily have that toxic trait of just like, okay, which character are we? Who's like, who's this character? Who's that? And so like, I was just like, okay, Emily is not going to say she's a Charlie, but she's definitely a Charlie. But she's also a Minx.
Minx was a great character.
Yeah, just the pure chaotic manic energy. And then of course I'm just like, oh, I'm absolutely Husk. I'm just the bitter old man character.
Why? I do that. I kind of love that. I'll have to look back. I'm like, I don't think I'm any of these characters, but I do like them a lot. I did, as we were talking, I thought about something really quick. There is a awesome amount of representation in the show, and actually something I was afraid that they were going to change because of just fan theories and things like that, is that Alistair is canonically Ace. And they actually confirmed that in episode 7, I believe, that he is an ace.
Yeah, there was like a subtle little kind of jab. It's like you're always holding an ace, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do remember that.
which is cool.
I feel like
accept that.
I feel like
really
the show
cool.
is so edgy and obviously like, queer coded in such a way where it's just like, yeah, no, there's no way that you can change these things without and not to mention and I'm sure this goes back to like the people who are like really upset about the show because like showing things about sinners and Satan and all this kind of stuff and like you're making angels look like the bad guy is like, okay, so like, yeah, here are all the people that you said are going to hell. Oh, hey, look, they're in hell. Weird.
Well, like you said earlier, I was like, it's a kind of simple principle, but I like the idea, just like, hey, maybe not all bad people are bad people just because it's almost like it's not black and white. It's just like life is very complicated, and people have a chance to do better, and I think in general it's very sweet.
That was also the funny thing I thought when they had the episode where they go to heaven. I can't remember which one. I had like 5 or 6.
7, I think. No, it's 6, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, episode 6, they go up to heaven. And it's just like this looks exactly like how they portray hell. The difference is it's way more boring.
Oh, absolutely. It is very like so pastel that the colors almost look all the same.
Yeah, and like it's just like we have a ice cream shop and all these things and like wholesome activities. It's just like, yeah, I'd rather be down at the strip clubs and the and the casinos and like at the porn studio.
Mm-hmm.
But like the thing is just like, but there's like an obvious contrast there where it's just like these two places really aren't that different, and like obviously they play up the thing where it's just like, oh, people are up in heaven and they're just kind of minding their business and not noticing. It's just like,
well, and also the like lack of care from any of the angels, and when they're like directly asked, well, what gets a person in heaven? No one can answer that.
Yep. Yep. Lots of like I said, a lot of good commentary on it, and again, like the thing that the show did very, very well, I think, was the characterizations. Like even the characters who you were just kind of like, yeah, this isn't necessarily a likable character, but you find a way to like them. And then of course
the V's, because I'm like, I love their character design so much. The 3 V's.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's another piece of commentary they did with just like overlord demons representing media.
Mm-hmm.
And like Alistair, used to be a part of that, and him being a radio demon, not necessarily as relevant, but still has influence.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, good. I'm so glad you guys liked it. That makes me so happy because I was really I was ready to grandstand on this. I was ready to fight. I was like, listen, this is why it's great. I was like, oh, you like it too. Well, good.
I'm just offended that you didn't have faith in us to actually like it and go through with it.
Well, again, I was just more concerned about the
musical aspect.
The musical aspect and like the edgy aspect of it, because I feel like I understand why people. This show is not for everybody. Like I have recommended to very few people. I was shocked my partner even liked it. Honestly, we watched it together and he loved it too. And I was like, I can see this going right on the edge of something you not liking at all. But here you are, you love it. So maybe I'm wrong with that. Maybe I should recommend it to everyone. My mom, my grandma.
Go that far. I think you don't give me and Seth enough credit for how fucked up our brains are.
You know what? You're right. I'll do that from now.
But no. So anyway, so that was our homework assignment for the week. Anybody who wants to kind of check out Hazbin Hotel gets a recommendation from me. Absolutely.
Yes.
Unless you're not a big fan of furries, in which case maybe, just be aware.
But also leave them be. The furries aren't hurting anybody.
See, I don't have.
And they have a lot of money. They will hire a hitman to come and get you.
Those suits are expensive and they're custom.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm aware. No, like nothing but love for the furry community. You guys do you. I'm just saying for the people who are very like have an issue with furries, it's like, yeah, maybe don't watch the show.
But
and maybe don't spend $50,000 to create a BDSM music video of you and the main character.
Do if you want to. It's your money. There's worse things to spend your money on.
I mean, what's $50,000 to a motherfucker like me?
Exactly. Beautiful.
Oh God, I wish I had $50,000.
So you could buy one yourself? I hear you. We're all thinking it.
Yeah. Just me and Alistair, just whatever. I'm going to go completely against all lore, just like the original music video.
That's true.
Who needs lore? Lore's just something that they made up.
True. So true.
All right. Well, moving on to further topics, big kind of news from the week. Carl Weathers died. I believe at 76 years old, they say he's most known for playing Apollo Creed, being in the Predator series, and also being part of the more recent Star Wars updates, specifically starring in The Mandalorian and even directing some episodes.
And Arrested Development. Don't forget Arrested Development.
I forget about Arrested Development all the time, so.
How dare you? That show is
See,
perfect, except for the last 2 seasons.
The 2 that they made years later?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't recommend those.
Sense. So, but yeah, so this kind of got me thinking, because like it's one of those things where like Carl Weathers, obviously wasn't like crazy A-list actor throughout the whole time, but like he was a really good actor, and like there's not really anything I can think of that he was in that I go, it's just like, oh, that was horrible. It's like, no, he was good in just about everything. But it kind of just got me thinking about like celebrity deaths in general. We've seen obviously hundreds of them over the years, but I feel like everyone like has a different impact. Like there's ones that you kind of just go like, oh, that's sad, and then there's ones that like really hit you hard. It's like, there any ones that you kind of feel about that?
I know when Trevor Moore passed away from Whitest Kid You Know, that was weird, because that comedy trope had been like very influential to me when I was a teenager. Bree's doing some Googling.
Here's the thing, I'm not that into celebrities, to be honest with you. So I'm just like, I was like, is there any that I care? Not that I don't care. When people die, that's very, very sad. I know there was an actor recently that died at like 52, I think, and that sucks. That's too young to die. But I don't remember who it was. So
who died at 52?
I was like, celebrity deaths this year. Don't put me on a list. It's I'm not looking to add to it necessarily.
As long as you didn't murder any of them, it's fine.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I think like the last one that I feel like was most universally shocking was Robert Williams.
That's fair.
That was like the last like big one that I feel like everybody collectively, had,
the big collective bum out.
Yeah, it's like it's very hard to like not have like existed in any kind of culture and like not had an impact from Robert Williams at any point. The one that like really like messed me up, and it was just because like literally I had just woken up in the morning, had my coffee, got into the car and ready to head to work, and I had NPR on the radio station. The first thing it says, Chris Cornell's dead.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah, and especially because like when I was working in the news station, he had just done like a Good Morning America performance like maybe like a year ago for his like solo album that he was doing. But like it was just one of those things like they kind of just blindside you so much. And like
it was Toby Keith I was thinking of, by the way.
You were thinking Toby Keith. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not sad about that.
I'm sad that it's 62 is such a young age to die. That makes me sad.
That is a young age to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was never a Toby Keith fan, but I did have to like turn to Emily and just be like, hey, I'm sorry about Toby Keith.
Yeah, not a fan either. I'm like, not that is like, even because Matthew Perry died last year, and I know that was a big thing for a lot of people. And I'm just like, definitely sad. He was not a old dude either. He was, he was 54. Yeah, so that fucking sucks. But and Andre Brower, did we mention him already? Because that's super fucking sad. I was sad about that one. Andre Brower.
Chadwick Boseman over COVID, that was a big one.
That was devastating.
That was one that like, especially because like when you realize like how long he had the cancer, and like he was doing Marvel movies in a lead role, which those are like physically demanding films. Like even if like you're not doing all of your own stunts, just being in the shape that you have to be to do those movies, that's not an
all
easy
of the
thing
chicken you have to eat.
And with no skin and no carbohydrates, it's all just chicken and broccoli.
Yeah.
But
Carrie Fisher, I know that was a very long time ago, but that one made me very sad.
Yeah,
I just watched Star Wars for the first time.
Yeah, and that one, and that's actually an interesting one because of like how much like that, her death basically I think influenced the last 2 movies very specifically, because they had to do reshoots for Last Jedi, and then basically anything they wanted to do narratively for Rise of Skywalker, like basically just kind of gotten thrown out the window. Like when you consider that technically Leia never saw her son that entire like trilogy, like like I genuinely think like the scene where they had Harrison Ford back as like Han Solo's ghost to confront Kylo is like that was supposed to be Leia, but they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
Yeah. And you can only do so much with deep faking.
I don't know. I've
Which,
seen those Taylor Swift edits.
They're getting scary, but it's still not quite there yet. Like you could still tell.
Yeah.
It's very obvious, but there's also like a lot of sensitivity that goes for like the postmortem, like, deep fake applying kind of that kind of stuff where it's just kind of like, there's lawsuits that can be had for the most part.
Well, and it can be hyper disrespectful. Look at like anything they did in The Flash.
Yeah, wasn't there like a whole thing about like they never got permission from Christopher Reeve's
I think
family
it was
to use his likeness?
Yeah, I don't think they got his, and I don't think they got the whatever the first Superman's name was, the actor who played him. I don't think they got any of his families, or if he even has a family
his
still.
name. But yeah, I blame hologram Tupac.
that was the start of it all.
Anybody remember hologram Tupac?
I remember hologram Tupac. I remember hologram Frank Zappa.
I forgot they did hologram Frank Zappa.
I remember hologram gorillas.
Well, that one I'm not.
They're already animated.
Yeah, that one makes sense. That's fine. Those are already fictional characters.
Absolutely.
They're
real in my heart.
Yeah, I was about to say, some gorilla fans like get really upset when they go to a Gorillaz concert and they see Damon Albarn on the stage, and they're just like, "Who the fuck is this guy?
Is this loser?"
You're just like, "Oh, it's just a woohoo guy."
That made me so happy when I found that out for the first time. The woohoo guy that's awesome.
Yeah, it's what I think I figured that out right before Humans came out. Just because, like, I never had put a lot of thought about it, and then they announced they were doing more Gorillaz. It's like Damon Albarn and I forget the guy's name, but the comic book artist behind the characterizations. He did Tank Girl.
Oh yeah,
because that was his collaborator on it. I watched Tank Girl on a plane actually on the way home from LA. Actually,
that's a good place to watch it.
It was just on the list of like movies that they had on the thing, and they were just kind of like, okay, like all the Oscar films I'm not gonna watch, all that kind of stuff. Tank Girl, all right, I'm in.
Yeah, why not?
I watched it for Movie Tuesday years ago, so it's just a blur of like it could be 8 other movies at this point.
It could be a Harley Quinn movie if they really wanted to make it a Harley Quinn movie. It's basically the same character.
Hot take: I like the Birds of Prey movie.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either. I think it's good though.
Yeah, I think it's fun.
It looked fun. It was just one of those things where it's just like I was just like that's like around the time where I was just checking out, and like I think I had already officially checked out of DC at that point. Like after Justice League was officially where I was just like, what, I'm done.
I stayed with DC far longer than Marvel because I just wanted to watch that ship sink.
Yeah, that's basically what that came down to. It's just like just eventually, it's just like, what, I'm just done giving you a chance. You've hurt me too many times in the past.
No, I will always go back to an ex. I don't care how many times I've been hurt.
We know.
Devil, right? So
some of them actual devils.
Yes, true.
Yeah, as it turned out.
All right, well, moving on. So Seth suggested this topic. Xbox putting its games on PlayStation / is Xbox going to be the next Sega? This is kind of an interesting conversation because Xbox just recently announced that they are going to start publishing some of their first-party titles on PlayStation. And some big ones at that. Like, these aren't just like, whatever things that they had exclusive rights to, but like these are some of their biggest titles that they've had. I think they're talking about Gears of War going over to PlayStation and a couple of others. We know they just had their big acquisition of Activision Blizzard, and like a big part of that was just like, oh, they're just gonna make Call of Duty exclusive, and Xbox is like, no, the fuck we're not. You think we're gonna like turn down money? But this is like an interesting thing because like this is what Microsoft's been kind of on this path for a long time now. I want to say like midway through last generation, the Xbox One, like that generation specifically, because they started moving over to Game Pass as a subscription service. Pretty much all games on Xbox are on PC. And basically just kind of as a result, they're just like, you know what, we don't care where we're getting our money as long as we're getting our money. But everybody's kind of making a very big deal about the console sales, and everybody's like invested into console wars. And I think the biggest question is how nice is Sony going to play with them on this?
That is a big question. But yeah, you're right. Like I know the Xbox One sold way less than the 360 did, and the series is selling even less than that. So I think they're just trying to find wherever they can get money. And what I had heard is that they're even trying to get Game Pass itself onto PlayStation.
Yeah, they've been talking about that for a long time. I think they really shot themselves in the foot with the Xbox One, because the announcement is like their initial announcement. They pretty much did not talk about games. They were trying to talk about it as a set-top box. They didn't have really anything interesting as launch titles, which is like a big thing for your launch. And then like DRM, like you can't resell your games and everything else, like really kind of just like tainted that console generation.
Yeah, well, and then PlayStation at the end of the last cycle swooped in with just like tons of amazing exclusives.
Yeah, well, because that's what the bread and butter was back in the day. It was all about exclusives. Like Brie, I don't know when the last time you owned a console was, but
Has there been more after that? So, just kidding. I was like, I have a PS4, and that is the last console I've used because I did switch to PC gaming after that. But I do love my PS4 very much, and I just can't afford a PS5. But I would never go to Xbox, to be honest with you, because I don't know why I would, except for Viva Pinata, to be honest with you. But if they bring that over, it's donezo. That's the best game of all time.
Well, yeah, it was funny because like I was more of an Xbox kid growing up because we had a GameCube because, you know, we were always a Nintendo household, but then my aunt got us an Xbox for Christmas one year, and so we were very much an Xbox household. So a lot of the Xbox exclusives like Halo and all, you know, Gears of War, all that stuff was there. We eventually got a PS3, but it was one of those things like that was just a device to play God of War and Kingdom Hearts. Again, going back to the exclusives aspect of it. But especially like as like you, Brie, I've gone into the PC master race, which is a very weird term that I don't know why they have adopted. But
probably
yeah,
racism in the gaming community.
Probably, I would say so.
Oh, absolutely, probably. But yeah, like becoming a PC gamer is just like, okay, well, basically anything that can be found on Xbox is on PC. I also have this treasure trove of like indie stuff and other stuff available to me through Steam and other, you know, gaming clients. It's just like there's no reason to own an Xbox if you go into PC. And I don't think Microsoft cares because it's just like, oh, you want to get into PC gaming where you're going to have a Windows license anyways. So we're already going to have you in on that. And so I feel like Xbox is more or less kind of giving up on being a hardware seller, and they're probably going to look at new ways of specifically getting Game Pass and stuff onto other kinds of devices. Like there's no reason why they can't figure out a way to get like strong enough hardware into like a smart TV and allow people to just game right off of their TV. Like it would be pretty expensive for the most part, but to put like console level components into a TV probably would only add maybe $200-$300. So, like, I think that's like a direction they may be looking at. It's just like, again, if they can get Sony to play ball on having Game Pass on PlayStation, like that would be an interesting negotiation because it means they have to give them a cut. Like the biggest problem with Game Pass has been it's just like, oh, you're basically charging $15 a month and people can basically download any of these games, and some of these games are like big AAA titles that cost $60-$70,
and they're day and date releases in most instances.
Which that could tank sales for some of these people because like it's just like if people are only have to pay $15 and they can just play the game, and then we're not getting the full sale sticker price. Like it's one of those models that you look at and you try to think of like how does anybody make money off of this, and you're just like, I don't know how that math's supposed to work.
That's the only reason I would have an Xbox, to be honest with you. Like, that's the only appeal. I will say, generally speaking, I have no console loyalty at all. I am one of 5 kids, so growing up, like, I had whatever console my siblings had. My first personal console was a PS2. And then I got a 360 because that's where the cool games were, and I was playing Viva Pinata. Exactly, important. And then I got a PS4, and then it just, like, then it kind of stopped for me. Like, it's just like I couldn't really afford it anymore. And it's, especially having a PC, it's just like it didn't make sense anymore. Like, I think Square Enix literally right now is having a sale on like every Final Fantasy. And I was like, oh, Well, that's also what I was using my PS4 for.
Oh yeah,
So
no,
what do
like
I
Steam
need
sales
it?
are amazing. Like, PC gaming's not cheap to build a PC, but like once you're in, the amount of games that you can buy for like $2, $3, you wait for like a big Steam sale, like
Mhm.
things could be marked down even more. It's just like, yeah, no,
Catalog.
like, yeah, exactly. Like maybe you're paying a lot more upfront for the PC gaming
Mhm.
experience, but you save more in the long run because you can get all these other amazing games at super cheap prices that you wouldn't have access to if you were just locked into a console.
Yeah,
And it
and
also
pre-builds
doesn't
are
help
better
that,
now too. So
and it also doesn't help the fact that again, like Game Pass is on PC. Like you can play the Game Pass games on your PC. So there's like pretty much no, if you built a gaming rig or if you bought a pre-built, like there's no reason to own an Xbox whatsoever.
yeah.
Real quick question. All three of us have Switches, right?
Yes.
I do.
I
That
barely touch it, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
same. That's why I brought that up because it's like we're not even mentioning the Switch when it comes to consoles right now.
The Switch only
Yeah,
exists so
whoops.
I can play Zelda. That's the only
That's
reason it
fair.
exists.
I
Like,
it's exclusively Portal 2 for me now.
And Pokemon for me. So
yeah, exactly. But
Oh,
like that's
I
the thing.
started Scarlet, and you're right, dude. That thing sucks. That thing is so buggy.
it is like it should not be that bad. Like it's especially for like a full price title from like a well-known company. It's really unacceptable. Do I fucking love the shit out of that game? And I played it so much because I felt like a little kid, especially like having picnics with my Pokemon. I was like, oh my god, 10-year-old me is fucking losing their mind right now. This is all I've ever wanted. But it looks like fucking trash. It runs at like 2 frames per second.
It's actually the problem I had with Tears of the Kingdom, where it's just like the entire time I was playing it, I was just like, God, this runs like crap. I'd rather just be playing Breath of the Wild right now.
Yeah.
Because at least I know that could run semi-consistently. But that's also just Nintendo's MO. It's just kind of like, look, we're the Pokemon, Zelda, Mario company. You buy, you want to play our games, you buy this console.
Yeah.
I've said for a long time, this is not an original thought at all, but they are the Apple of video game companies.
Oh,
No
absolutely.
question. It's comfortable, you know it. It kind of sucks. But you'll buy it, idiot, and I sure will. So
And they've never given a crap about like technology standards. Like, it's just like the fact that that thing pretty much runs like an Xbox 360, a console from almost 2 decades ago now.
Yeah.
And like
Well,
that's
it's
still
because
the thing they're
the
making.
last time they gave a shit and put like all of their specs in the name was the 64, and everyone was like, "Yeah, but PlayStation's better." And they were like, "All right, let's make something else then."
But again, if you want to play Mario or you want to play Zelda, you need a 64.
Yeah.
yep.
Pretty much what it comes down to. We will ride that nostalgia to the grave.
We are, I
Yeah.
own a Switch, so it's right there, unused, but I paid for it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely I've been looking at like the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck and like looking at like, running a Dolphin emulator so I can just play Switch games with actually decent hardware. But like that's a whole rabbit hole that I would have to fall down to get that to actually work.
A lot of effort, honestly, but I get it.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, so we talked a little bit about it in this topic, but what are some of your guys' favorite video game franchises? The things that make us buy a Switch or buy a PlayStation.
I've gotten really into the God of War series over the past few years. Ever since the Norse saga started, I've gotten really into that. Doom is another one that I'm fairly new to, but I fucking love those games. They're so fun. And then Batman, Spider-Man, all the classics. Portal is my favorite of all time.
Portal's a good one. Too bad you're never going to get a Portal 3 because Steam can't count that high.
Nope.
Single tier. I'm like, I haven't been playing games that much recently, but I will say, just like because I have a platform to say it on, I will forever go to bat for Lionhead Studios. I might be the only one, but
Interesting.
I am like, I grew up playing Black and White, which is one of my favorite games of all time. I don't know if either of you played it, but it was.
I know about it. I never played it. I was a huge Fable fan back in the day.
I honestly, I know the games like kind of suck, but like I remember them very, very fondly. Like I just thought they were a good time.
Well,
I honestly, even the third one.
Well,
I had
Peter
fun.
Molyneux and Lionhead Studios were basically Bethesda before Bethesda was, doing their things where it's just like, we're going to overpromise all of these things and not deliver on a single one of them. But the game's still going to be fun.
I love
Like,
Fable, honestly. I just, again, I'll always go to bat for that. And Black and White, like, you played like a god, and you got to just, like, control this whole world. And it was just, like, I think it was very ahead of its time. It was very fun. I don't think anyone else knows about the game except for me and my best friend who played the shit out of that growing up. But
yeah, that was like Pierre Molyneux's, like, first thing, and he introduced that whole idea of, like, morality system, good, evil, like, kind of thing. And, like, he kind of introduced that. I guess KOTOR might have beat him to the punch on that, barely. But no, like, I actually replayed Fable last year, actually, like, the Fable trilogy. I got, like, all the way through Fable 2 and then tried playing Fable 3 and then remembered why it was so bad.
it was the worst one. I still beat it. I still loved it. But the first two I'm ride or die for. I just, like, that is my early, like, 20s, late teens.
I loved the first one so much, and I didn't love the second one as much just because they changed so many of the mechanics and everything. Like, it was a very different game from, like, the original. And obviously there was a lot of things that had changed because that was going from the original Xbox to the 360.
Yeah.
But you go back and play and it's just like, oh yeah, I see why this one was more critically acclaimed than the original one because there was so much more interesting things going on with it.
Yeah.
And then you get to the third one and it's just like you basically just took the second one and you basically made half of a game and then just rushed everything else at the last second.
That's accurate. Honestly, I am just a sucker for any game where, like, my decisions do impact the story a little bit, which is why I'm like, I love Baldur's Gate. Granted, the other franchises in this have been terrible, but, like, I love Until Dawn. I think it's the best of that kind of genre. I think all the games they've come out with after that have been, different, not all great, but I love the idea that I have a slight impact on, like, what happens in the story versus me just, like, kind of following it along. But yeah, that's all I got. Also Kingdom Hearts, because I grew up with that shit, although I never played the third one and I probably never will.
Well, what about all the other, like, 2.1, 2.3 remixes?
If I have to have 8 different consoles to play your series, get so fucked. I will never. I love Kingdom Hearts 1. I love Kingdom Hearts 2. Because they were on the console that I fucking owned. I shouldn't have a handheld which I've never had a handheld console, and I shouldn't have to have 3 of them to play your fucking series. Get fucked. But
all the lore you're missing out on. So much lore.
Again, I find it funny that you've forgotten the Switch exists just 3 minutes after we were talking about it.
What do you mean?
Okay. Well, that's a good question. Do you guys use your Switch as a handheld console? Because I pretty much only ever use it as off TV experience. I never
use it on my
TV. Like, as a handheld.
I exclusively have the light. I can't plug it into my TV. I keep pointing, but my mic stand is covering it.
Yeah, go figure.
Imagine it's here.
Like, it's just, I don't know what it is about the handheld experience on the Switch, but, like, it's just, like, it's clunkier. It doesn't, like, really kind of, like, and then, like, especially since I'm mostly playing either Smash Bros, Zelda, or Mario Kart, that's more of a on TV play experience. It's not a carry around handheld experience for me. And, like, I don't even play mobile games on my phone, so, like, the experience of playing mobile games anywhere else, just, like, it's not really conducive to how I operate video games. But no, go ahead.
Oh, I have a game folder on my phone that every once in a while I open and look at, and then I close it.
Yeah, pretty much. I have, like, 3 games that I never play on it. But yeah, so, like, as far as, like, my favorite game franchises go, like I was saying, like, Bree, I'm right there with you with the Fable series. I went back and played them, like, about a year ago. Obviously, I'm a big Zelda guy for the most part. Everybody keeps on trying to get me to play the 2D Zeldas, but I never enjoyed the 2D Zeldas. And I realize that they're so influential to a lot of people and influential to game design in general, but it's always the 3D Zeldas that, like, I end up, like, replaying. Like, I replayed Ocarina of Time a while back. I tried to replay Majora's Mask, but I forgot how, just incredibly, like, nerve-wracking that game is because there's so many things you have to manage on their, like, 3-day cycle. It's just, like, you can only do certain things through, like, every playthrough of the 3 days. It's just, like, no, not into that. But loved Breath of the Wild. I replayed that one several times. I didn't 100% it, but, like, I've done everything except get all the Korok seeds. And then
Those collectible missions in any game will keep you from 100%ing it, no matter how much you love it.
and see, I'm not a collectibles person. I'm just kind of one of those things where it's just like, okay, what's the benefit of collecting them? It's like, oh, you get more weapon slots. It's like, well, I pretty much never go through all of my weapons anyway, so it's just like I'm okay with like not committing too much energy to this. But yeah, like Tears of the Kingdom, I know got so much critical review, but I was just like, it's not that good.
I've honestly never played a Zelda game, so
Me neither. I was just going to say that. I really feel like I do own Breath of the Wild, and I feel like maybe one day I will embark on it, but I just like, I don't have a lot of interest in it.
It's a huge time suck.
Yeah.
Because they went full on open world on it, and like it's very different from like, because like a lot of Zelda, you know, especially 3D Zeldas, they're kind of on rails for the most part. This was like the first time that they'd done like a full-on open world where it's just like, yeah, you can like spend hours fucking around. And normally I don't like that kind of game. I've never been a big Bethesda game person, so like I didn't really play Skyrim. I wasn't that into Fallout. But like it was like the one time where I actually really enjoyed it. But again, like Tears of the Kingdom I played, and I was just like, you took what was good about Breath of the Wild and you made it more complicated.
That's what I've heard about it. So maybe one day I'll play Breath of the Wild. Maybe.
But yeah. And then also being the lone Xbox person on there, you know, I played Halo a lot. I was never into military shooters.
Same. I had one Call of Duty when I was like 13.
Yeah, no, everybody I know is like really into Call of Duty. I've just never been into it. I'm just like, yeah, I prefer space fantasy with my, you know, shooting of things versus, you know, shooting people in foreign countries. Throwing that out there. And then Bree, I know you played Mass Effect.
I did. It's funny because I used to get a lot of shit for this back in my YouTube days because I have only played the first one in its entirety. I love the series. I think it's super fun. I just like, I have the personality, which I've mentioned before, where it's like, I will play a video game for 2 weeks straight and not talk to any human ever. And then I will put that game down and never touch it again. I don't know how that works, but it's just like, so I played Mass Effect 1 and I like flew through it, loved it. Played the second one, super interesting, was so into it. I have not picked it up since I was like 22, which is wild to me. But yeah, I will say I am not normally a sci-fi person, but for whatever reason, Mass Effect does do it for me. So
yeah. No, it's interesting because like I have a similar personality in that like, okay, I've gotten really into a video game. I'm going to play this video game into the ground and play it over and over again. That happened when Legendary came out. It's just like, because I never played the third one because that was like around the time where I didn't have a console anymore, didn't really have a means to play video games, and I'm in college. I can't afford video games.
Right.
And so like now I was able to go back, play the Mass Effect trilogy, and I probably did like 7 different playthroughs of that game. And then, but that's the thing, like it's just like, instead of like playing a whole bunch of different games, you know, you just play the one game over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's also weird because you would think that personality would go well with, you know, the competitive online shooters, but I don't play competitive online shooters.
No.
I can't get into online gaming really at all. I do it maybe once a year.
I enjoy the single player narrative focus kind of thing. It's just like I want to just go on a journey. I don't want to like get into a lobby and hear a bunch of underage kids, you know, use racial slurs and, you know, all that kinds of stuff. I'm just like, nope.
Been into that. I feel like I've always been a solo player for the most part. Although, not to get on like a tangent here, but I wanted to mention, I don't know if you have all heard about this game, but me and my best friend have been playing this game. I think it's called Bokura, and we played it on stream, and it's very cool because we have it's 2-player, and each of us have a different view of the world. Like hers is a cute little forest where we're a bear and a duck, and my view of the game is we are robots in a dystopian wasteland. And so the view of the game is different, so we have to solve puzzles together based on what we visually see, and we have to communicate that to the other player. It's been super fucking cool, and I'm just like, we didn't even figure it out at first because she was streaming, and then I was like, wait, why does your game look different? She's like, wait, what does your game look like? So it's
there've been a lot of very
cool.
like
That's
interesting
really cool.
like asymmetric co-op kind of games like that. Like I know everybody was really into It Takes Two, which was like I guess like
That's how I met my partner. So
go figure. But yeah, so I was actually meaning to ask you about this, Brie, because I had the thought like the other week. It's like, how would you feel about doing like streaming playthrough of Baldur's Gate with me and M or something.
I'd be down with
Just
that.
like as a stream. Like I know you said you were talking about maybe getting back into Twitch streaming a little bit. That could be like a fun thing. I'm streaming on YouTube while you're streaming on Twitch.
Yeah, I would be so down with that. I have a date with my best friend later today, and she needs to help me set up my OBS again because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. We set that up so long ago. I was like, how does this work? So
Yeah, OBS is it's a very powerful and interesting tool. It is also clunky as hell.
yes, and overwhelming. And I tried to set it up myself, and I was like, excuse me, tech friend, what am I doing? Because I don't understand.
Yeah, I've been working a lot with ABS for my work stuff. So if you need any, like, if you need to call a support line,
I appreciate that. That's why I have tech friends. That's why I have an iPhone friends. I can't handle this kind of thing.
It's like, who's my Android guy? Yeah, no, but like, yeah, I'd love to, set kind of that thing up. Have you played Baldur's Gate on like a multiplayer
I
setting?
have not. I've barely played it single player, to be honest with you, because again, my obsession died for a little bit. But no, I have not. But I've heard it's very fun. So
it brings in that D&D chaos that kind of happens because like it's one thing like when you're playing it single player, obviously like you're hitting all the story beats and everything else like that. But when you're playing it multiplayer, other people in the party can go be hitting those story beats while you're doing this. Emily likes to run off and start stealing stuff from people while I'm trying to go for conversations.
don't mind her. It's fine.
She's just running off of Asterion to go pickpocket people while I'm just trying to save this little girl.
Priorities, you know.
But yeah, so no, that could be a lot of fun. All right. So yeah, that's just kind of an example of some of the video game stuff. I feel like video gaming is like the one thing that like we've all kind of stayed up on a little bit for the most part. But I feel like that's
just in different
also,
directions.
well, it's also just it's less friction than a lot of other media. Like you can immerse yourself in it, and you don't necessarily have to get validation from people outside of it as much.
Well, and there's
I love
bunch of
validation.
different games. Yes, validation is great.
I do
there's a
need that
bunch
to be clear.
Please validate me.
Please.
But there are so many different types of games and types, like genres and everything. That's almost like reading, where like some people are into romance novels, some people are into sci-fi novels, and like you can just indulge in whatever you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyways, moving on to our next topic. When was the last time you guys went to a con?
March 2020.
Oh wow.
Literally like 2 days before lockdown. I don't know how we survived because we had no idea. So it was fun though. I had a good time.
I think for me it was 2017.
Was that the last Denver Comic Con you went to?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's probably 2016. I don't think I've been to one since I moved out here.
Oh wow.
So, like, Bree, you brought up the fact like last one you were at was 2020, but obviously I think that was kind of the time where it's just like COVID happened and cons kind of died.
Yeah. Eager to go to another one for that reason, honestly. I just like it's already a little rough to go into crowds, I think. Like at the airport, I'm always a little anxious, but I do wear a mask in that situation. If I were to go to a con, which I don't think I would, mostly because I don't have the same disposable income that I once did. Like I am a grown up now and I'm like, this is a lot of money and I need to like buy gas and groceries and everything's too expensive. So, because I mean, not only is like the ticket pretty pricey, then you have to figure out transportation and like I think I'm just in my 30s now, and that just stresses me. So I'm just like, listen, that's too much effort. I'd rather stay home. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think aside from, the obvious COVID-ness of it all, it's just one of those things where it's just like, yeah, we all got like, yeah, we're not going to enclosed spaces around big crowds anymore. That's kind of just not a thing. You had a lot of big industry events get shut down. E3's dead for the most part. Because of it, and like a lot of stuff has moved into like the online event space.
Before COVID, I remember having conversations with people about cons, and the consensus being like the first one and the second one, they're going to be your favorite thing you've ever done. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
By your fourth and fifth one, you get it. Like
Yeah.
you've had the experience, and it's not special anymore.
Yeah, it's this, especially because like almost like every con is almost the same. It's always the same guests, so like you're not as excited to see the guests there. Unless you're a cosplayer who's like been working on a cosplay for like the last like 3 months or whatever leading up to it. It's just like there's not that much excitement for it. Maybe if you like have kids, maybe, and they want to kind of like see the stuff and everything, I could see that would be like a cool thing to do
Oh
over the
God,
weekend.
we have changed so much because when we were in our early 20s, we were talking about why are all these kids here? This is for adults.
Yeah, pretty much. But but like the thing that like and you're kind of seeing like cons trying to kind of come back, but they're not like at that huge level that they were. Like when we did Denver Comic Con, that was insane back in the day. That
Big.
was a very big one. But like everything I'm seeing now are like just like really really small things. But the one thing I noticed like that kind of picked up popularity over COVID was Ren fairs. Have you guys done any Ren fairs?
I've been to one Ren Fair, yes.
In the past, but it's like honestly the at least the ones around here are always in like July, August, and there's no shade, and it's like I am such a fucking old person. I'm like how comfortable am I going to be at this situation? If it's not comfortable enough, I'm not going, because like the one near us is like it's in Wisconsin, and two it is always like on 90-degree days in July and August. And I'm like, as fun as that sounds, that's a long car ride and then heat stroke. So I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, I went to one that I think was like mid-August, and yeah, like I said, that Northern Virginia humidity is not a joke.
Yeah.
And actually, that one's up in Maryland, but still, it's just kind of like I'm walking around, and I'm basically like just drenched in sweat the entire time. But luckily, ours like goes through the fall, so like
Oh, nice.
as you get later and later, like you can get into like mid-October, it's a little bit cooler down. You can enjoy it, but like I feel like that those kind of replaced cons in a lot of ways because one, it's outside venues, so it kind of gets away from the COVID-ness of it all. Two, there's not like the pop culture influence in on it, and like no one's there for like a special surprise guest or anything else like that. They're mostly just there, just like, hey, you want to go drink, wear funny outfits, and have like giant turkey legs and just have a good time, and like, yeah, sure.
There
let's
is a
go for
very
it.
large LARPing aspect to it, at least the
Oh,
one
yeah,
that I went
absolutely.
to.
No, yeah, absolutely.
When the cosplay is more reusable, now that I'm thinking about it, because like I feel like if you're a cosplayer, you have to, if you're going to a Comic-Con or something, you want to be dressing as the most relevant character or one that people are
Yeah.
going to recognize. We're going to a Ren Fair. It's like, hey, I'm wearing something floofy. I'm a pirate priestess or something. Who the fuck cares? So-
Yeah,
and you can wear that all the time.
I wore a puffy shirt and I grabbed a hat from that stand, and
Yep.
now I'm a pirate.
Called it
Me,
a day.
medieval.
Yeah, it's basically how it goes. Like just
I'm gonna
little
get a
bit more
giant turkey
fun.
leg.
Yeah,
Pretty much, exactly. All right. Yeah, well, so you guys have any cons that you guys are interested in maybe going to in the near future?
Maybe.
I've always wanted to go to NAMM, but I feel like that's exclusive to me. For people who don't know, that's the music one where guitar
Oh, yeah.
companies and stuff show off. Hey, look at our new amp.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's like more of a like industry event, not so much a con.
That's true.
Yeah. Like when I think like cons, I think of just like it's just a bunch of vendors and people just showing up to just be nerds.
That's fair. All right, so I completely misunderstood the assignment, is what you're saying. All right.
That's on brand for you.
True.
I just realized C2E2 is coming up in April, so maybe I'll go on a Sunday. I would be okay
That
with
one's
that.
still alive? I thought they
That
killed that
one,
one.
it's our biggest one. Honestly, I think the smaller one is gone now. We used to have a Wizard World, which is the main con I used to go to. I don't think that's around anymore. So, but
Yeah, I think that
C2E2
was-
is entertainment, so it is a larger umbrella. So I think that's why it's still in existence outside of like the
Right.
superhero sphere. So,
Yeah, because I remember like Dragon Con was a thing. I don't know if that one's still around. But yeah, like
If Dragon Con's dead, that's big. Because that was like where all the horny adults would go every year.
yeah,
oh.
there's MagFest out here, and then there's KatsuCon out here, which is more MagFest is more PC gaming focused, and KatsuCon's more Blizzard and anime focus, which I don't know how much they're going to survive off of Blizzard stuff anymore.
I really thought you said lizard. I was like, oh, a lizard con, fun. Wow, lizards.
Let's all go to LizardCon.
Listen, I'll go tonight. Let's go.
Look, look, that being this close to DC, the people would legitimately think there would be lizard people at a convention, and then somebody would, put in a bomb threat or something.
Oh, goodness.
Again, not to get political.
No.
Yeah, so anyways, I think that gets us pretty close to the end of the show, which just leads us to deciding what our next homework, and today is going to be Seth's pick for homework.
All right. So I alluded earlier that I've been playing the RoboCop Rogue City game, and that got me wanting to rewatch and talk about my favorite movie ever, RoboCop. So if it's okay with you guys, I believe it is on Max at time of recording. Is that all right?
Is that is there like a newer one and an older one, or just an older one?
There is a newer one. I'm talking about the
Okay.
original, the one from
Okay,
the
okay.
80s.
Just to confirm.
If it looks like it was made in 2013, you're watching the wrong movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you see Samuel L. Jackson, you've gone too far.
It's from, I think, 87. I don't know. I got the Blu-ray right here.
I thought it was 84.
Is it?
I don't know. I wasn't alive for this.
In the 80s, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm reading the back like it's actually going to tell me. 87.
87.
87. Oh, okay.
Good year,
Yeah,
probably.
It's been a long time since I've watched it. Have you ever watched it, Brie?
I feel like I probably have, but I do not recall. So I'm excited to watch it.
Cool.
Okay.
I hope you guys like it. And we will probably get very political next week.
Content warning. Politics will be discussed.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks guys so much for joining us today, especially the cats joining Bree.
It's so
on Bree's
loud.
lap. Everybody taking turns on Bree's lap.
Yep.
Anyways, I am TCK Media, and you'll be able to find all of our content on our YouTube channel. Seth is ThatSeth23 on TikTok. And then we got Raccoonaloon possibly on Twitch sometime in the near future.
Maybe Instagram. Who knows?
Maybe Instagram, but no promises. Yeah, so thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.